another Tea Talks episode. My name is Jes'ka Washington. I am the host for today. And today we're going to go ahead and talk about something that I don't think a lot of us really think about. While we talk about so much moving to Dubai and what to prepare for, we never really talk about what's back home and really shutting down the house, shutting down what you're going to do with your car and your family. I am going to say, for the sake of this, that we are not experts. We are really just going to talk about our own personal experiences and things that we thought about, because what our goal is in this episode is to let you think about all the things that you might have on a checklist and what you might have to consider. Once again, as I said, I'm your host, Jes'ka Washington. I am so pleased to have my guest with me today.
I'm Loretta Sanders, and I am from North Carolina.
Hello, I'm Veronica Griffin, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois. Glad to be here.
And I'm going to say, first and foremost, I'm talking to some people who've been out here for a minute, right? And how long have you been out here?
This is my 10th year.
10 years. So you've already seen
longer than me.
So many changes.
Yes.
And you've seen also a lot of people come and a lot of people
go.
Yes. And you've been out here?
Going on 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I really want to start then with this question, especially with you for being out here for 10 years. When you first came out here, did you know it was a long-term move, or?
No, I didn't. When I initially came out here, first off, back then when you Googled Abu Dhabi, you came up with pictures of Dubai.
Oh, wow.
So we really didn't know where we were coming to when we all went. It was a large group of us. I think it was well over 2,000 of us that showed up that year. So we didn't really know where we were coming to. And of course, before you leave home, and you even mentioned back then you were going to the Middle East, it was like, oh, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. So it was kind of when I left coming home, because I wasn't sure what I would find. So I definitely didn't prepare for long term, and I definitely didn't shut down for long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually let my brother move into my house. I did take my stuff out.
Okay.
I put my stuff in a storage unit. And when I came, I just kind of left everything as is. The lights, the water, everything was on, because I was like, if it don't work, I can always get on a plane and come back to my house.
Yes.
So I kind of, when I left everything as is. I didn't shut down anything.
So is it still like that for you now?
No, for me now, I still have my house, but now at this point, I've cut down on the expenses of maintaining the house. Because before I was still maintaining the house, so I still make my house payment, I still make my mortgage payment, but that's pretty much it with the house and things like that. Yeah, but as far as like my personal belongings, by the time I got finished that year, I know the storage people, I had paid them, I think it was 2 years. I think it was almost 2 years or almost 3 years before I got my stuff out of the storage building. That was just way too much money. So I just ended up, one summer I went home and brought, you know how they have on the side of the road, the storage buildings?
Yes.
Get your own storage. So I just went and got one of those, put it in the backyard, and put all my things inside of that building in my own yard.
Okay.
So that cut down again on the expenses of what I was paying, but storage buildings are way too expensive. So if someone has a family member that you can purchase one of those little storage buildings and put your things in there, that would be much more cost effective, and you'll own it. You'll own it yourself later.
Okay, so what about you?
So a similar situation. I did not shut down.
You did not shut down?
I did not shut down. I had someone move in.
Okay.
I paid all the bills. The intent was to just see how it was going to go. And it went well. And I enjoyed being here. So at the 1 year mark, about a year and a half, I went home, packed it up, and sold it. And I still have, I have a friend that has a storage unit, and I think I have maybe a corner of her storage unit with a few items. But I just pretty much gave everything away. I gave my car to my son. He was in another state. And but for 1 year, I footed the cost of maintaining that house. And
is that expensive?
It was expensive for me because it's the mortgage, it's the light bill, it's, you know, all of that. So selling it was the best thing for me. And it wasn't so much that I expected to be here in Dubai for the rest of my life, but I was in no hurry to go back to the U.S. And so whether it was here or I was going to go to Abu Dhabi or some other place, I knew that I was at a point where I was happier away from there than I was when I was there.
So I do want to ask the question before we move away from the housing situation. You sold your house.
Yes.
You still have your house.
Yes.
Is it still with your brother, or are you doing the rental kind of landlord
My
thing?
house is completely empty. No one is in my
Really?
house. Really? No one's in my house. My son stayed in my house for a little while.
Okay.
And then after that, I just kind of left my house empty. And that was just kind of, and now that's intentional. If I decide to go home, because the situation here changed so quickly.
Okay.
And I've been here long enough to see it happen time and time again. So my house is my house. And when I get ready to leave here, I still have a house to go home to. I won't have to try to find somebody to live with. Somebody, I'm going home. So I kept my house, but no one is living in my house. My house is just empty. I keep the grass cut and it's just empty.
I'm just going to shout you out, independent woman, because if I go home, mama.
I have told my grown children that they each get turns with mama.
Yes.
So I don't plan to have a permanent address in the U.S. when I return. I'm going to stay with you for a couple of months, and you with a couple of months. Yeah.
But we talked about the house, and I think that's another plan. And if we get into it, we can talk about, the future, because it really makes you think about the future. But we're still going to stay kind of in the U.S. and talk about cars, because I think that's another thing that people really don't recognize on what are you going to do with your car and your car situation.
Yeah.
With my car, I gave it to my daughter. She was a college student, and so I just kind of let her have my car. It was a safer car. It was a newer car than what she had. So I just gave her the car and let her keep and drive the car. Unfortunately, she had an accident in the car.
Yes.
And so that it ended up totaling the car.
Yeah.
Which was a blessing.
In disguise.
It was a blessing in disguise, because she was safe. She was not harmed in any way, and the car ended up being paid for.
Right.
So that just kind of wiped me clean. That wiped me clean of the vehicle and the expenses that came along with it.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I just gave it to her and was making the car payments.
And then I'll say this with the car, because I'm about to ask you. I know for me in my situation, we really had to talk about insurance, because with my name on the car, and I gave my car too, we then had to turn around and talk about the insurance and adding the other person on and making sure that happened. And then I also set up someone to be a power of attorney for me in order to take care of U.S. business, because I needed somebody to be able to take care of those things. But it is an expense, and a lot of people say, hey, should I give it to a family member, should I not? And there is an expense. Like, you better love your family, like, because if something does happen, and is that person really responsible? And if you know the truth, you can't handle those situations, and the U.S. is good on penalties and different things like that, and you don't want to be out here trying to handle business back home.
Right.
What about with you in their car?
So for that first year, I kept it. It was already paid for, but I still had to maintain the insurance. And it just sat pretty much.
Yep.
When I went back and closed everything down and sold the house, I gave it to my son, but I took him to the DMV and turned it over in his name, signed over the title, and was like, okay, gone.
And that's one of the things, because I do remember, and I hate that this story's popping up, that my friend actually let her brother use the car, and then he got into a major accident, and it was on her report, and it was on her insurance and the things that you have to owe. And when the car is not totaled, you have to take care of that. If a car is stolen, you have to take care of the paperwork. So you have to be very cautious about those moves.
Well, the blessing in it was, for me, is that I was with USAA.
See, that's that good.
I was, and my daughter, she was a college student, so she was already on my insurance. So even when she hit the bear, we still checking the bear story, but we're gonna go. We're gonna go with she hit a bear.
She hit a whole bear.
A whole bear
in North Carolina.
She hit a cub in North Carolina.
Okay, yes, she did.
She hit the cub in North Carolina. Going towards the beach.
A bear at the beach.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
What month was this?
Yeah. So right.
December, okay.
So with that, so it was easy. It was very easily taken care of. It was cashed out. So even though it still kind of went listed with me because we were family. It really didn't impact my insurance too much with
Right.
USAA. So USAA is a great insurance company. If anybody's ever worked with them, that was a shameless plug. But they really are. They are a really good insurance company to work
Well,
with.
speaking of insurance, I know that for me, when I was making the transition over, I really tried to spend some quality time figuring out life insurance and figuring out. I actually wrote the will and did all of those things because I wanted to take care of that business. Before we dive into that, was there other things that you can think about that you really took care of business-wise?
For me, mail. So because I had my house, mail was still piling up there. I did discover that there is a system where you can apply for a mailbox where you have a U.S. address. All of your mail goes to that address. And then they actually show you what the mail is.
Yes.
If it is junk mail, they just dispose of it. If it's something you want them to open, they will open it, take a photograph of it, and send it to you. So it's a great mail forwarding system.
And I'm only going to chime in here because I trusted my mama and my sister for my mail. And I love you, but I happened to go home and saw like this mail, and I had a check. Like I had an insurance reimbursement, but my sister never opened up the thing, and literally it was like 3 days from being expired. And I was like,
Right.
so you do. And then my mom, bless her heart, is sitting there trying to scan. It's like I never get the whole letter. So it's like that is an excellent service.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
I never had that problem. My mama called me, Loretta, you gotta check.
Now, if you went to my mama's house, she would open everything.
Everything.
Well, what were you doing here?
And I would say that's
did
probably
you really need that? And, this is really high. So no, it can't go to my mama's house.
No.
My mama opened everything. You gotta check here. Well, where is it? Yes.
And I will say, but that's part of not making wise decisions because I have two different addresses. So, and for various reasons. And where because my mama do be in my business. My mama be in my business hard. Now, going to that though, and one reason why I had to do power of attorney is that you're no longer putting into a retirement system when you come out here. And I think that's one thing we take for granted as teachers, that we're automatically in. For me, it was TRS or whatever. You're no longer putting into a retirement system. Did you guys do anything to help figure out or offset that concern?
I did not. I was under the misconception that your end of service was going to be your entire monthly salary. 1 month, but it's
the base.
Right. It's the base salary, not the entire. So I was calculating after years of service what I would receive, and then count that as kind of my retirement.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily work out that way. Yeah. So no, I'm still not adding to one in the U.S. And I've thought about it. I think that looking into maybe a IRA or 401k might be beneficial here. I did do insurance. I know we'll talk about insurance, but I did buy insurance here.
Yes.
What I did, I had already had a account at the bank, an IRA at the bank. So it was just simply a matter of transferring funds from one account to the other. And I still do. I still have mine established. But what I did discover is you can't do it with foreign money.
Okay.
You can't do it with foreign money. So you won't be able to, like, say for example, you get paid here and then you take those dirhams and you send it to that account. At least in the past, that's what I faced when I first got here and I wanted to put money in. They wouldn't let me do it, and I'm with the I'm with the credit union, and they wouldn't allow me to do that. So I had to use other means of moving money to put money into the account. So that's something to consider. If you do have a retirement account, how are you going to get the funds into that retirement account? If it's with a bank or if it's with something, someone.
I'm going to sit here and say here for this, that this piece of the conversation is actually a lot deeper. There are so many different things, and it does vary state to state. The first thing that you need to do is, honestly, if you're with the bank, you need to figure out that system. I was naturally with the teacher retirement system, and I had to figure out that system. And honestly, they held my money and it would matriculate, but I found out later the interest rate, I could have turned around and moved money and got a stronger interest rate somewhere else. So those are conversations you really have to research and do for yourself, and start having conversations with other people. What did you do? How are you saving for retirement? What are you doing now?
And most teacher systems will not allow you to add money to it.
Correct. You
So
cannot
if you're not
add
working,
money.
you cannot add money. So you would, if you wanted to have additional funds or use money that you're making, you'll have to open another account.
So what happened, we're going to go into insurance. So I actually did one decision leaving, and I totally came back a year later and totally changed that because of what you learned. But what I did was I rolled mine over into a retirement fund with an actual insurance company where I paid into it every month so it can turn around and do that. Like I said, so I did that for my first year, and then after coming out here and learning and going to financial literacy conversations, and also learning what it means to be international. And I found out there was a clause in mine that said if I died on international soil,
You would not be covered.
I would not be covered. And I just did not know because they were talking about the residents. And so I was very nervous about that. So I had to come back and make those changes. So that's why it goes to the next part. I was going to say, now, how did you work with your insurance? You said you had insurance.
So when I left, I didn't have any.
Okay.
I didn't have any because I had a group policy with my previous employer.
Okay.
So when I came out, I didn't have any. And then I said, oh, I might need some insurance.
Yes.
And I have family members who are insurance agents.
Yes.
And they strictly said many of these policies, if you're international,
Yes,
they
they're
will
not
not
gonna
work.
cover you.
So I got a policy here that's an international policy.
So, and I will say actually the same thing here. I got a policy out here and paid less monthly than I really was used to, and really enjoyed the benefits. I mean, just really did everything, and just, you don't know until you come over that the language and the possibilities.
Right.
So I will say that life insurance is very important, but you have to really know what your policy covers and doesn't cover.
Exactly.
For me, with my insurance, I did get insurance here. But I was able to keep my insurance that I had with the school. I just had to start paying individually because it was whole life. It wasn't term. It was whole life.
Yes.
So if you have whole life,
Those are different.
if you have whole life, I would suggest that you contact the insurance company directly, because if you want to continue, you may be able to continue on versus term is something totally different. And I'm not an insurance agent, but
I'm not.
but I know that they're different.
Right.
No, they're not
And I
the
will
same.
say, I'm going to say this, and I learned it, and it's a very hard conversation for me to have with people in the States who are insurance agents. So I will just say, return for yourself.
Right.
Go ahead and watch YouTubes and everything.
And then since I've been here, I've got insurance since I've been here, and it definitely was cheaper. I found it to be cheaper, and I think it was a little, and it came with the clause if you get sick or injured.
Yes.
Like it came with that included versus it being two different policies that we would normally have to purchase if we were at home. So I would say when you get here, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Right, and then there was
And it was mine was a higher limit for less money.
Yes,
so it's really great. And it covers me here and when I go to
That's
the
the
US.
biggest thing. And then I think there was a clause in my U.S. insurance that said, oh, you can get the money if you're in hospice. Well, I didn't know what hospice was. And now I was like, I don't want my money at the end.
Right.
Like, I'm sick, like cancer, like, and you have to think, cancer is something that's relevant.
Yes.
And so I know too many women who've had stories and battles that if I was in a situation, I don't want my money tied up there when I might have needed it here, and you can go into debt because of medical bills.
Right.
So it's a major conversation. And as I said before, we're not experts. We're just talking about our own stories and our own revelations.
Yes, true.
So it just goes back into the things that you have to think about and be cautious about.
Correct.
And know about.
Mhm.
Okay, so we talked about the shutting down. We talked about the insurance. We talked about, just planning and all of those things. I don't want to say, do you have a retirement plan? Because that kind of sounds like, but have you started thinking about the future past these years?
So when it comes to a plan, I have not yet. Well, I've thought about it, but in terms of putting something into action.
Right. Okay.
So I'm in a different position than I was in when I came. So I'm now working for myself. I have my own business. And so now I'm looking at it from a business standpoint.
Okay.
So I should be making some decisions soon.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say.
I think my planning started more on this side than it did in the beginning.
Okay.
In the beginning, I thought more of others than I did of myself. It was making sure others were okay. And then now the realization is, wait a minute, you have to live too on the other side of them. Right? And they have more years probably than you. You got to figure it out. So my planning started probably a little later. But in planning, I would say for anybody who's considering planning is to think about what your future goals really are.
Yes.
Where do you want to be when this is all over and done? When you get ready to settle down, where do you want to be, and start planning from there.
Yes.
And start considering finances. Like, look at your
Yes.
look at it's so easy, as we were talking about shutdown. It is so easy because everything over here is so pretty. It is so easy to get caught in the beautifulness of everything. So I would say come with a budget.
Yeah.
When you leave, before you leave home, have a budget, plan with it, and kind of stick with it. So then that you'll be adequately prepared as you prepare to an exit strategy, because things does change quickly.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think one thing is that while we can talk about retirement and the plan, there was a scare earlier where the Iran and the bombs, and it was you're going to have to leave. And it was a big question on, do you have an exit plan? You have to really plan two things. You get to plan for the future, but in case something goes down, do you have something in place to be able to be okay? And I don't want that conversation to get lost in the plan. You have to kind of prepare for both, just in case. Like, what was that bag that your mama told you were supposed to have in the trunk? I don't know what they call that bag, but and then once again, like we said, like that future. But you're supposed to have credit card and cash available at all times with a certain amount. You must research those airplane tickets if it's going to be an airplane ticket. You need to know what borders you can go to, and the location, and the way, and the expectations, if you have to be able to do those things. But you have to be able to be responsible for leaving. And I'll say this because a lot of people assume the embassy does those things.
And they do not. And that was a very real scare when that happened with Iran. And I fortunately have a friend who knows someone who works for the embassy and was able to get a little more information about what they tell the embassy folks.
Versus what they're putting on the website.
And so yes, I have a go bag. I have a go bag because this is not our home.
It's not.
And we have to be very cognizant of that. Even though we don't anticipate that it would happen. But any given day, they could say, okay, all Americans, you have to go. Or all expats, you have to go. It could happen. And because it could happen, you have to be prepared. I know a lot of people that experienced some really hardship recently, especially as a part of the pandemic. And lost their jobs because they were closing positions, and they needed to go home and couldn't. So they're reaching out and getting donations so that they could buy plane tickets to go home because they weren't prepared. So and that's not to shade them in any way. It's just a realization that it's important to be as prepared as possible, because what if those other people couldn't help?
Right.
Then you're stuck.
Well, that's the whole purpose of us, I guess, coming together now and just giving information on, you do have to be conscientious of the could-be's.
Yes.
Right.
And you need to also think about what should be, and I will say you need to have a will. And I think a lot of people now are going back because of COVID, and the teachers are like, now I have to make a will. You actually should have already had a will. You need to have those things taken care of. We are not having that episode with me, Ma, and Auntie at the funeral.
Right.
Acting. You need to be able to turn around and say, and this one's kind of hard, like, do you want to be able to go back? Do you want that plane ticket? I have already put in my will. I don't want my family spending money to bring my body back. Because I'm sorry, I priced it. You know, how much? And it's very, very costly.
Yeah.
And there's things I'd rather y'all do something else than do that. But those are things you have to be able to think about and be considerate.
Right.
Just any parting words, because I know we're coming towards the end of this conversation. Any parting words or moments?
I would just say, for anyone who's planning to come, as far as shutting down at home, make sure you do have those wills done. Your power of attorneys are so important that you have those done, and make sure you leave it with a trusted person.
Trusted.
A very trusted person with the power of attorney. If you're leaving your cars, your homes to individuals, again, make sure that it's someone you trust. And either way it go, even if they move out, plan in your budget to be prepared to make your mortgage payments. At the end of the day, that's still your house.
It is.
It's still yours, so you plan that in your budget to make those payments. And I would probably say, come with a budget and stick to it. Stick to it.
And it's okay to shut it all down. It's okay to sell everything and start over new. I would imagine that that's a wonderful feeling to come here and not have a mortgage or any bills. And I would imagine that's an amazing
2 boxes
feeling.
in my sister's house.
Yeah.
I shut it down.
Yeah. So just make the decision that's best for you. You know, if you have that support and you have someone that can maintain and hold it down for you while you're here, go for it.
Yes.
But if not, it's okay to start over. Fresh is good.
I think the key thing is, and what's everybody saying, it's okay to live.
Yes.
It's okay to live. It's okay to try. But don't get so consumed in the moment that you haven't made concessions to take care of the things that matter to you. And that's really the big thing. It's like take the time out to make the concessions to say that this is important, and I have my future taken care of. I have this taken care of. I have a budget that I'm willing to work with. I don't have these headaches, and I can do this. And we know you can.
Of course.
So thank you so much. This was just a great conversation. I learned so much. We're gonna talk about this bear because I got questions too. But until next time, I'm once again Miss Jes'ka Washington with another episode of Tea Talks, and I thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you.